So we're back for another deep dive, and today we're going to be digging into a case that's been really puzzling internet sleuths for over a decade now.
Yeah, this is one of those stories that, it just grabs you and it won't let go.
The disappearance of Bryce Laspisa.
Absolutely.
So for those who haven't heard this case, Bryce was a 19-year-old college student at Sierra College, which is up near Sacramento.
Right.
And in August of 2013, he was driving back home to his parents' place in Laguna Niguel, which, for people who know California geography, that's about a 7-hour drive down I-5.
Yeah, pretty straight shot.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
And a route that a lot of Californians have probably done, in their sleep.
Yeah.
But this trip took a very, very strange turn.
Yeah. This is one of those where, it seems very ordinary and then all of a sudden things get really weird.
Yeah. Even in the days leading up to this trip, Bryce was acting a little bit strangely. He broke up with his girlfriend kind of out of the blue, told her that, she'd be better off without him, and even started to give away some of his belongings.
Yeah, not your typical behavior before a road trip.
Right. Yeah, you don't usually think like, oh, I'm going to go on a road trip. Let me just give away all my stuff.
Yeah, it definitely seems like something was bothering him.
Yeah, it seems like there was something going on there, and the weirdness continued throughout the trip itself.
Right. It wasn't just this, simple drive down the freeway that you might expect.
Yeah.
It was full of these strange stops and detours along the way.
And the biggest one of these was a 13-hour stop in this tiny town called Buttonwillow.
Yeah, Buttonwillow, it's literally hundreds of miles from where he was going.
So what was he doing there for 13 hours?
Well, he was in contact with his mother during this time, assuring her that he was fine and on his way home.
Okay.
He even spoke to a tow truck driver named Christian who helped him when he ran out of gas during that stop.
Okay. So he ran out of gas in Buttonwillow.
Yeah. And Christian later described him as being, polite, but also kind of confused and disoriented.
Confused and disoriented already. That's a little worrying.
Yeah, definitely not a good sign.
Especially considering what happens later.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it sounds like there was already a sense of like something's not right before he even got back on the road.
Absolutely. And it gets even weirder. After he leaves Buttonwillow, there are reports of him driving in circles for hours.
Driving in circles for hours?
Yeah, like he was lost or just unsure of where he was going.
It's almost like he was driving with a purpose, but didn't have a destination in mind.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
Yeah, so you get this sense of like this aimlessness.
Right.
And this, lack of direction.
And that feeling just kind of grows as we get closer to the last known contact with Bryce.
Okay.
Around 2:00 a.m. on August 30th, he called his mother again, saying he was tired, but that he was almost home.
Okay.
But that promise, unfortunately, wasn't kept.
So he tells his mom he's almost home, but then his car is found wrecked hours later. Right. It's almost as if he just vanished into thin air.
Yeah, and that's where the discovery at Castaic Lake comes in.
Okay, tell me about this.
Well, his overturned Toyota Highlander was found near Castaic Lake. And this is probably the most chilling part of the whole story.
Right.
This isn't just like a fender bender.
Yeah.
This car had plunged 25 feet down an embankment, and Bryce was nowhere to be found.
25 feet down an embankment.
Yeah, it's a pretty steep drop.
That's pretty serious.
It is.
Wow. Okay, so we're going to dig into, that discovery and all the weird details around that.
Yes, absolutely.
When we come back.
All right. So Castaic Lake, it's a pretty remote area, kind of rugged terrain. You wouldn't just stumble upon it accidentally.
Right. And we're not just talking about like an overturned car in a ditch.
Yeah.
This went 25 feet down an embankment.
Yeah.
That suggests some serious force there, maybe even something intentional.
Yeah, and when you look at the scene itself, it just raises so many questions. So the back window of his SUV was broken from the inside, which, suggests maybe he tried to get out that way, but all of his stuff, his wallet, his phone, his laptop, it was all still inside.
Huh. So if he did get out through the back window, why would he leave all of his stuff?
Yeah, and to make things even weirder, the key was still in the ignition.
So it's like he just stepped out of the car for a minute and poof, vanished.
Yeah, it really is a mystery.
So how do you even begin to unravel something like this? What are some of the theories that investigators have been looking into?
Well, in cases like this, you have to consider all the possibilities, right? Even the ones that seem far-fetched.
Okay.
And one of the first theories that came up, and it's maybe the most unsettling, is that Bryce actually decided to stage his own disappearance.
Stage his own disappearance. Why would he go through all that trouble, crashing his car and then just leaving everything behind?
That's the big question, isn't it?
Yeah.
But some people point to his behavior in the days before the trip, the
Ah,
sudden breakup, giving away his possessions. It could be seen as him trying to cut ties, like he was getting ready for a fresh start.
so maybe he wanted to make it look like he was having a breakdown or something.
Yeah, maybe as a way to cover his tracks.
That's pretty chilling.
It is, but it's important to remember that we don't have any solid proof.
Right.
No witnesses, no confirmed sightings of him after the crash.
So it's all just speculation at this point.
Yeah, unfortunately.
So if we move away from the voluntary disappearance theory, what other explanations are there?
Well, another one is that he might have been going through some kind of mental health crisis.
Okay.
They found traces of alcohol and Vyvanse in his system.
Vivans, isn't that a stimulant for ADHD?
It is, and it can be helpful for people with ADHD, but it can also have some pretty intense side effects, especially when mixed with alcohol.
Right, like what kind of side effects?
Well, things like anxiety, paranoia, even hallucinations, especially in higher doses, or when combined with other substances.
Okay, so if Bryce was already dealing with some emotional stuff,
Right.
and then you add alcohol and Vyvanse to the mix,
Exactly. Who knows what kind of state of mind he was in?
and we know that he had that expulsion from Sierra College a year before.
Yeah, that must have been tough for him.
Yeah. Do you think that could have played a role in all of this?
It's definitely possible. I mean, a setback like that can really weigh on someone, especially if they're already struggling.
So is it possible that he wandered away from the crash site in some kind of confused or disoriented state?
It's definitely a possibility. Imagine being in a car crash, maybe still feeling the effects of the alcohol and medication,
Right.
and then you're in this unfamiliar place, rugged terrain. Who knows what could happen?
Yeah, it's not hard to imagine him getting lost or injured out there.
Right, and Castaic Lake, it has those steep slopes,
Mhm.
dense vegetation. There's even wildlife out there.
Not exactly a safe place to be wandering around alone, especially if you're not thinking clearly.
Exactly.
So we've got the voluntary disappearance theory. We've got the mental health crisis theory. What about foul play? Is there any chance that he ran into someone with bad intentions?
Well, there's no evidence to suggest that, but we can't rule it out completely.
Especially considering how remote the area is.
Right. Castaic Lake, it's popular for recreation, but
Mhm.
there are also plenty of isolated spots where something could happen and no one would see.
So we're left with a lot of possibilities, but not many answers.
Yeah, that's the frustrating part.
So what about the search efforts? Did they ever find anything? It's just heartbreaking to think about, all those resources and still no answers for his family.
Yeah, the initial search was massive. They had law enforcement search and rescue teams, helicopters, canine units, even volunteers.
Wow.
They were out there for weeks searching the area around Castaic Lake, hoping to find any trace of him, but they came up empty.
So all that manpower and still nothing. That's just incredible.
It really is. It just shows you the scale of this mystery.
And how determined people were to find him.
Absolutely.
What about his family? Have they been involved in the search at all?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Bryce's parents, Mike and Karen Laspisa, they have been incredible advocates for their son. They've been working with law enforcement. They've hired private investigators. They've even organized their own searches.
Well,
And they've kept his story in the public eye, hoping that someone somewhere might have that missing piece of the puzzle.
it's just amazing to see their dedication. They haven't given up hope.
Not at all.
But after all this time, has the case gone cold? Are investigators still looking into it?
Well, here's a bit of good news. Law enforcement says they still consider this an active missing persons case, not a cold case.
Okay.
It's still open and they're still following up on any new leads that come in.
Well, that's good to hear. At least it hasn't been forgotten.
Right.
But I can't imagine what his family and friends are going through.
Yeah.
A decade of not knowing.
Yeah, the emotional toll of something like this is unimaginable. You're constantly in limbo, not knowing whether to grieve or to hold on to hope. It's just heartbreaking. And, it's not just his immediate family. This case has touched so many people all over the world, people who've followed the story and offered their support.
It really shows you how something like this can impact an entire community.
Absolutely.
And, it's kind of a reminder that even with all our technology and investigative tools, some mysteries just remain unsolved.
Yeah, that's the tough reality. Sometimes there are no easy answers.
So what do you think it is about this particular case that continues to resonate with people after all this time?
I think it's a lot of things. You have this young man just starting his life, and then he vanishes without a trace on what seemed like an ordinary drive.
Right.
You have this strange timeline, all those weird details at the crash site, and then just no explanation.
Right.
It's the kind of story that really gets under your skin, and makes you think about your own life and your loved ones.
Absolutely.
And then you have the human element, Bryce's parents, their unwavering love and dedication. The fact that they're still searching for answers after all these years is just incredibly powerful.
It really is. Well, this has been a fascinating deep dive. Thank you so much for sharing your expertise with us.
It's been my pleasure.
And to all our listeners out there, we encourage you to keep digging into this case. Maybe you'll find something that's been overlooked or connect the dots in a new way. What do you think happened to Bryce Laspisa? Share your thoughts with us on social media, and until next time, remember, true crime, no bull.